Always gets the nicest shine on that iPad. All right, it is 6:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Or not. All right. Are we recording? I missed that. Before we start?
Yes, we are recording.
All right. Let's start off with just a quick roll call around the room. I'll start. Jeff Selzer, member.
Derek Mills, member. Dan Evans, member.
Matt Tuff, member.
Michael Gloden, member.
Todd Lambert, not a member. Superintendent of Littleton Public Schools.
Josh Stewart, member. And then Kelly.
Hi, Kelly Honecker, member.
All right. Excellent. We have hopefully a good full agenda today to cover. We're going to spend a little time getting a little background and update on the Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan. We have Mr. Lambert here to talk about all things LPS with us. And then we need to spend a little bit of time talking about what we want our 2026 agenda to look like. So we will start though with public comment. Would you like to introduce yourself, where you live, and give us your 3 minutes?
I do. My name is Robin Bernstein. I live at Littleton Crossing. And I want a world that works for everyone. I took the D line from Littleton Light Rail Station the other day going to Inglewood Library. While waiting on the Bird bus, they have a shuttle bus that goes around. People got on, including a volatile, loud, angry person who kept yelling, I hate you, you, me, everybody. So anyway, he sat behind me. He was wiggling and, uttering horrible words through the flowered blanket that was wrapped around his head and body. Everyone on the bus seemed indifferent and somewhat fearful. I decided I had enough. And the bus driver didn't do anything either. So I got off and caught the RTD 0 bus going to King Soopers on Broadway. I needed to go to the bank. So anyway, I called the Bird bus number and suggested that they rotate one of the apathetic security guards that are at Littleton or Inglewood Library. They don't do anything other than open the bathroom for you. And to actually serve and protect and guard vulnerable citizens on the bus. So I know when we get our circulator bus, safety will be a priority. That was number one. And it is easy to schedule appointments with Via Mobility. Canceling a ride is not easy or quick. And it was somewhat, I had to cancel in the morning. And so, in fact, I had to run out and tell Mark, forget it. Because the guy that Aaron or the new computer, he didn't match, nothing matched. I started at 5 a.m. Anyway, Connie was right regarding scheduling setbacks for buses when you need to set appointments a week ahead of time. Thank you.
I'm Connie Cantrell. I live in District 2. And after hearing, last month was great information about the omnibus. And after hearing about that, I'm going to sit here and now say we need both. We need the omnibus to get people to their doctor's appointments, to things that they know they have an appointment for. But the shopping cart really is for people to go shopping. It's to get them to the store and maybe actually go with a friend. And I know that from hearing last month that at one point we did have both. And I can see from the budget that you can take one from, can take some money from the omnibus and then put it towards the shopping cart. But I also think businesses could be very much involved in this. If we're taking a bunch of people to King Soopers, wouldn't King Soopers be wanting to help with a shopping cart? Just an idea. And thank you guys for what you do. You come here and your time is spent. And coming here on a month-to-month basis, I can see the differences you make. So thank you for the work you do.
And I have 3 printouts to pass out, so please share. The LPS guy can help you guys with that. I kind of wrote this out, but my name's Andrew Shad. I reside at 833 West Crestline Avenue. I'm here today to speak to you guys about the neighborhood traffic calming program. Freudian slip there. And in particular, Prentice Avenue and Huron Street. So Prentice Avenue and Huron Street is on that out. It's an intersection with a geometry problem. You can see this intersection is unsafe for cars, pedestrians, and bikers alike. For cars and bikes, the jog in Prentice means that it is blind from 3 different directions. Drivers must edge out beyond the stop sign into active traffic lanes in order to see if they can take a left turn. This issue is compounded by the fact that people really speed through this intersection when they're coming along Prentice. Worst thing though is that the distance from curb cut to curb cut for pedestrians trying to access Progress Park and Dry Creek Trail is 90 feet from curb cut to curb cut. For context, that is the same distance as crossing 6 lanes of traffic with the median at Broadway and Littleton Boulevard. And equivalent, that's crossing 5 lanes of highway traffic at Bowles and Santa Fe. For an unsignalized intersection of 2 lanes meeting 2 lanes. And one of them isn't even a real road, it's a driveway for a park. When I heard about the neighborhood traffic calming program, I submitted a ticket for this intersection. That was 2 years ago. After 2 full years, I finally heard back with an email, not that any changes were imminent, but that this intersection had progressed to being considered to maybe have some traffic counts taken. And I find this frustrating for a couple reasons. First is that traffic counts were done at Prentice and Delaware in October of 2023 after that ticket was submitted. I don't know who they were done by, but they are publicly available on the DCROG's website. I think it was probably for the development that went up there. By the way, that number is 3,200 vehicles daily, over twice the volume measured at Powers and Elmwood, which already has traffic circles, and nearly 3 times the value or the volume at Peakview and Gallup, which got a road diet in the last few years. These are all post-COVID traffic volumes as well. But I hesitate to even bring up these counts because this is not a traffic volume or a traffic speed problem. This is a geometry problem. Second, it's really frustrating that so many projects have progressed in other parts of town or even been fast-tracked while our little corner of town has been ignored. It's led me and my neighbors to joke about what it'll take to get this addressed. Lightheartedly, our answer has been that obviously we need to open a brewery and that'll get us a crosswalk built in record time. And on a less lighthearted note, is it going to take a collision? Is it going to take someone getting hit? Is it going to take an ambulance trip before this is addressed? And so I'm here tonight because I hope the answer is just a really, really squeaky wheel. So get used to seeing my face and hearing me because I am not going to shut up until something is done about this ticking time bomb. I request that a pilot project here be fast-tracked. No, it's not. Please flip to the last page.
Thank you very much.
Can someone repeat what the intersection is?
Practice in here,
Just south of Progress Park.
yeah, east.
Yeah.
This intersection, I know.
Catch that, Kelly?
South of Progress Park. So
Prentice and Huron.
Yeah, Prentice in
Prentice and Huron. Okay, thank you.
And I not only don't have time, but Prentice and Huron Way is also a problem intersection, a block apart. And Rose Lindauer, who lives near there, requested me to talk about that intersection as well.
So if we can only fix one, is it Huron Way or Huron Street?
Close everything down. 2 cul-de-sacs.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks to the public. Now, Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan.
Just 1 second.
So Serena's here to guide us through this. Can we get the presentation up?
Yeah.
So as a quick reminder to the board while we're getting this going, this is really like early innings on this, if I'm understanding correctly. So there's really not a lot of progress to talk about. This is a little bit more of just the high level update of where we stand and what we're thinking about doing?
Yes. There's a delay, so I hit the button. All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Zareen Tasneem. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department here at the City of Littleton. We're located in this corner of the building, a little separate from my transportation planner folks, but do work closely with them. I am the project manager of the Littleton Boulevard sub-area plan, which has kicked off this fall, really as your chairperson mentioned, very early stages. We're doing very early outreach to our boards and commissions like tonight. Just kind of putting the word out there that this is a plan that's kicked off. And the goal of the plan is to really think about what does Littleton Boulevard and the area surrounded look like in 20, 30 years. So we kind of pose this question of guiding the plan of it's 2050, what do we want Littleton Boulevard to be moving forward to be kind of the guide. So yeah, what is a sub-area plan? It's sort of at the same level as a comprehensive plan in terms of how detailed it is. It's pretty conceptual. It's taking that same comprehensive approach to multiple topics, but just on a smaller geographic scale. In this case, we're looking at the Littleton Boulevard corridor and some of the blocks to the north and east of it. The exact project boundary is to be determined as part of the planning process. Thinking about, what areas that surround it kind of influence or are influenced by the corridor. So it's showing a very high level of detail, very conceptual detail that might be different from some other plans that we have worked on more recently, or maybe some of the plans you guys have reviewed more recently that might be a little more finite in design or detail. So for example, if you were to look at an intersection project and looking at the design of it, that's several levels down from what this sub-area plan would be in terms of detail. So like a recommendation from this plan might be to make improvements to an intersection. And then the follow-up steps would be then to look at designing the intersection. So I say that all to kind of set the idea and what type of level of detail we're looking at with this planning process. So as a follow-up to the last slide, as I mentioned, what it is not is an infrastructure plan, which is more akin to what we saw with California. It's also not a singular focus area or single focus plan, like something such as the Broadway corridor study that really looked at the transportation, or our comprehensive economic development strategy plan, which just looked at economic development strategies. It's looking at a more comprehensive approach. And if you want to, next slide. We're taking a look at it from 6 points of view to get that comprehensive approach. So looking at it from the historic preservation perspective, land use and zoning perspective, economic development, housing, transportation and mobility, and then streetscape and green infrastructure. So as you can see, TMB sort of falls into some of those focus areas, and will be one of the boards that we look to interact with throughout the planning process. So we envision the planning process to take about 18 to 24 months. Like I said, we just received council approval to start the work in September. And we're starting some preliminary work right now with data collection and existing conditions. And actually this week we're doing some traffic counts along Littleton Boulevard. And Kenna is our transportation rep from the city side on the plan, coordinated with her to let her know, so already involved. They did get traffic counts on Tuesday, and they'll be doing weekend traffic counts on Saturday. So things are already happening in this aspect of the project. We'll be doing communications and outreach, so community engagement throughout the planning process. And then, other areas of the plans are kind of conceptually laid out. So hoping to wrap up about fall of 2027 with the final plan and recommendations. And like I mentioned, we hope to make staff presentations to the TMB throughout the process periodically, just to give you all an update on where we're at, just because we are taking a look at transportation, and it is a major factor along the boulevard of some of the issues that have popped up, not only in the past year, but in previous years as well. And I'm sure Kenna will be making updates to you as well on a more monthly basis as she knows information. Next slide. So part of those community engagement opportunities is a stakeholder working group, which we would like a representative from our boards and commissions to sit on, as well as business owners or representatives from the business community in that area and residents. So that's why I'm here tonight, to give you a very high-level overview of what this project is and to solicit interest on you all thinking about who you think or would like to be the representative on that stakeholder working group. As part of sort of the advisory group of this project throughout this planning process. And then I would also ask for you all to choose an alternate in case that representative can't make any meetings. They would then step in to attend that meeting. The stakeholder working group will also be taking part in an urban design charrette as part of kind of their scope that they'll be working on, which should be an exciting process. So
What is a charrette?
it's a design.
It's like a workshop.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah, it's a fancy way to say workshop, I would say. Of,
Super.
You kind of pull out paper maps on a table, start like sketching things out of like, here's where I might want some things to go. Looking to Shane and Kevin here to talk about concepts here.
Intensive collaborative workshop where designers, community members, and stakeholders work together over a short period to develop shared.
That was really exciting.
All right, that's AI. Because I had to look it up. I didn't even, I was too
Yeah,
embarrassed to ask.
like a couple of hours or a one-day type of event in terms of time commitment. Yeah, it's very much like pulling out a giant sleeve of paper and figuring out, oh, this is what I might want here. This is what it might look like conceptually in this area. So if you are more of like a planning nerd or design nerd or something like that, that might appeal to you. It's my pitch for that appeals to someone on here to take part in the group. So Jane, if you want to, so in speaking to time commitment, it would be for the duration of the project, so that 18 to 24 month period. And the meetings would be periodically every few months, kind of at major milestones of the project. We would be bringing concepts to you, trying to get feedback and advice on that collaborative group. You would bring the different perspectives. So in this case, the member would bring the perspective of the TMB as they're looking at those asks that were bringing for that particular meeting, most likely in the evenings, trying to think about people's schedule. And then participation in that urban shred. So that would be more of like a one day, couple of hour type of commitment. And we really see this person and the alternate being a liaison between the project and the TMB. So reporting back on some of the things that you've been working on or kind of like some of the progress that has happened, in addition to maybe kind of making that report out. So, you know, any thoughts that the TMB has about the sub-area plan, we would expect the representative to bring that to that stakeholder working group to convey it on behalf of the board.
yeah, so this is a similar process to how like Project Downtown worked, with a representative on the stakeholder working group, bringing that information back to the group, soliciting feedback, and then bring it back to the stakeholder working group.
And when are you looking for this person? When are you looking to get this started?
Yeah, so we're hoping to hold the first stakeholder working group meeting most likely in the beginning of February of next year. You know, people have holidays and times off, and we're doing outreach right now to get people to take part in the group, and then we'll look to be scheduling a meeting probably in January. So we'd like to have an idea of who the TMB rep would be whenever you discuss amongst yourselves, but probably by the next month or so. I know you have a packed agenda, so I don't think there's time for discussion today on it. But if you want to let Shane or know, I'm not sure how discussions happen in TMB. But if you want to discuss amongst yourselves on who the official rep and then the alternate would be, and then just let them know by next month so that we can look towards like scheduling things out for that February meeting.
Are your meetings in the evenings or during working hours?
Most likely going to be in the evening, especially if we're trying to accommodate some residents to attend as well. And most of our boards and commissions are resident volunteers as well. So I know people have day jobs. So well, we will come to you in the evenings and work longer hours. But yeah, so it'll be that couple of months and most likely in the evening time.
How big is this group gonna be?
Ideally, couple of dozen to start with, just to account for a rep from different boards and commissions, the various business communities, and then residents as well. I say ideally because, you know, some people might drop off because of life commitments or so I say ideally.
Which boards and commissions are gonna have, are you asking to?
Yeah, so we will have representation from City Council, Historical Preservation Commission, Planning Commission, Transportation Mobility Board, Next Gen, Arts and Culture Board, Environmental Stewardship Board. Capturing all the ones from the city, and then hope to have representation from sort of our quasi sort of board. So South Metro Housing Options is our housing authority, so representation from there. And then also hopefully, ideally, a representation from the Littleton Downtown Development Authority as well. So a number of boards and commissions.
Questions?
That's not the end of it, right?
Isn't that the end?
That is the last slide.
I thought we were gonna get nerdy.
Yeah,
If
so
you really wanna get nerdy though, you can raise your hand.
Do you have a tentative like area so people can see where the sub area plan is generally?
yeah, so that type of tentative outline was shared with during our city council meeting, which I believe is linked in your agenda. That was provided and not necessarily in this presentation. But it is tentatively right now from the railroad tracks to the west, all the way to the eastern boundary of the city. So just a little past Broadway, and then tentatively a couple of blocks to the north, and then a couple of blocks to the south. And I say a couple of blocks just because the streets get a little wonky. So think about a block or two, like 2 blocks to the north and 2 blocks to the south right now. But again, that's tentative.
And so this would kind of,
Discuss.
this would connect Epic and Littleton High School then?
Yes.
Yeah, and so as part of this, like we are looking at Powers, 'cause Powers is the identified bike route in our transportation master plan. So like we are taking traffic counts and some training with my council on Powers to assist with the data analysis for all of this as well.
What time do the traffic counts take place, or is it all day?
We're getting 24-hour counts. Yeah.
6:30 to 9.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe they're, yeah, they might be, I forget if they're 24 hours, 72 hours, something like that. So yeah, we'll capture peak periods and off times.
In the current UC, this has its own special designation, right? Like the Littleton Boulevard area is like a community collect, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
Not in our zoning code. In our Envision Littleton comprehensive plan, this area was identified as a special planning area to look further into. So Littleton Boulevard is identified in a lot of our existing plans as a special planning area to look further into, including Envision Littleton, our comprehensive plan, the transportation master plan, as well as within sets, the comprehensive economic development strategy, as they had several outcomes in there related to Littleton Boulevard. So we have multiple, even higher level citywide comprehensive plans in place that really have already identified this as a special planning area. So we're getting around to actually finally looking at it in a detailed, just comprehensive look.
Yeah, so I feel like we anticipate, to Zorene's point, that this is a higher level plan, but, there might be some zoning recommendations that will, lead us to update the ULUC eventually, or could this become an overlay district that has specific design guidelines? Like, it's very open to see what comes out of this, but I think looking at land use and transportation and how all that stuff's part of it.
Show of hands, does anyone like to be on this?
You're a resident, so you could even.
You got it anyway.
So we're not suffering for volunteers, okay.
We don't have to draw straws.
So we'll figure it out, alright.
Yeah, if you live in the area and don't end up as a TMB specific resident, but would have interest in just being a resident stakeholder, so you would come into the meeting more presenting that resident perspective as opposed to the TMB specific perspective. Well, you can't have two. That's open as well, just because I heard someone say you might live in the area or so. So that's another way if you have an interest. Really think if you are someone that has been thinking comprehensively about this boulevard from multiple perspective and would like to weigh in on this. And, might not be on that TMB representative, but want to be more of that resident specific perspective. That's something we're open to as well.
And just so the public knows, there will be some points where there'll be kind of open public input, kind of scheduled items that will be published in the regular city publications, correct?
Right. Shane, if you want to bring up that slide with the engagement opportunities. Yeah, so the project engagement opportunities we have identified as part of the scope include a variety of options. The stakeholder working group is just more of a long-term commitment. You're taking part in something. We also have just part of more one-off opportunities for people to take part in, including surveys and pop-up events. We're hoping to we'll get the project website established for people to get updates and just keep up with the project itself. But we're also hoping to have focus group listening sessions that will most likely be a one-off event, but tailored towards, let's say, just a resident focus group listening session, or an open house in general, just because we realize people have different time commitments they can make. They might just be more able to take a survey on their phones, and that's just what their time allows. But if someone has more time commitment they can make, we're also open to the concept of a community champion that can, if you're a resident that's interested but can't make the commitment of attending meetings as part of the stakeholder group, but would still like to be involved, we're open to the concept of a community champion, of disseminating information out about the plan to amplify. Here's some engagement opportunities coming up. So that's also an opportunity for residents to get involved in the area.
Thank you.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zoreen, but if you know of other residents, I think we are looking for, some residents. Talk if you fall in that category. But if you know of others, either along the corridor or near the corridor, that would be interested, please let us know. Yeah, we're eager to get folks involved.
Awesome.
Well, we can talk about how you want to do.
Yeah, we'll figure it.
Nomination.
Yeah, I would say on the resident side, I will just throw out that I feel like that corridor, much like downtown, is something that many people in the city have very strong opinions about and ownership over. So it's certainly important that people that live there have a say, but I think I would suggest you might try to figure out ways to get a broad representation of residents. Maybe try to say like 1 or 2 per district would be a way to kind of go down. That's just the first thing that comes to my mind. But trying to get more input than just those that are right there in the.
Yeah, we thought about the concept of having like a resident at large type of situation where they're not necessarily maybe living within a couple blocks of the corridor, but live elsewhere in city, but have some type of invested, or not investment, but thoughts on it. So that's something also we're exploring, resident at large sort of concept.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, and if you guys want to get in contact with me, And like I mentioned, we hope to make periodic presentations to you in the future, but this was meant to be just sort of it's happening. We're doing things. We'll come to you with more information in the future of some of the data.
I met with someone from Rooted in Littleton to try to find common ground last week, and this was one of the things that we chatted about.
Oh, really?
Was what can we do? How can we make Littleton Boulevard great? So it's a big topic for a lot of people.
Oh, yes. Lots of hots.
Yeah.
Good to meet you all and hopefully see you a couple more times in the future.
Yep. All right. Next on our agenda is a conversation with LPS. We really appreciate you coming. Of course. We've been looking forward to this for a while. I'll set up from my perspective. I know that you got kind of sent you an email about some topics, some potential topics. At a high level, I think what we find in our meetings over the last year or two is LPS comes up not infrequently as part of our conversations. And there's a couple of big areas that are big topics, I think. Obviously, we spend a lot of time focusing on the Safer Streets Littleton initiative. And that is just integrated with the schools, right? I mean, there's just no way to extract those two. But we do, obviously, you're a separate entity than the city. And so there's been a lot of conversation here about how do we coordinate with LPS? What does LPS want versus what do we want? How do we partner in ways? How do we make sure that we have a strong path for communication there? So that's sort of the one area that we were hoping to talk to you about and get deeper on and understand where LPS comes from there. The other is we are working, we've spent some time prepping. We're about to update our transportation master plan for the city. And that we're picturing a pretty big rewrite. Like we only have one version so far. Most cities, did theirs in like the 70s and 80s. We did our first one in 2019. And candidly, it was, a first effort. It was a solid first draft. But as we review it, we feel like there's a lot more that needs to go into it. And we are actively trying to get input from all members of the community. What do they want to see in there? Like, what is important to them? And so some thoughts around how, if you have thoughts on that, that's what we'd like to talk about as well. And then we don't hesitate to ask questions. So there'll be a lot more things that come up as well.
Sounds good. How about if I just start just with some comments, right? I talked to Marcy Phelps, our Director of Transportation, and Brad Leitner, our Chief Operations Officer, in the last couple of days, knowing I was going to sit here. So I wanted to pass a few comments on and some of our discussion. We are at this point complementary partners. We feel really strong about the relationship, and it seems to get better every month or so, right? We've had some coordination meetings that we have regularly with the city. These are the main topics. We can, just a couple of things they mentioned. Easy to get a hold of, easy to talk with. Heard Tim Weaver's name several times. Almost all of it good. No, I'm watching. But no, just really smart, just really good things about Tim being a smart thinker with the work that they're doing and accessible. And then I just think about some of the projects, give you some tangible examples. A lot of times it's been my experience as an educator that when you work with the town, the city, the entity, quite often you find yourself completing a project slightly at a different time than the other one. And so the other one's got to mess with the egress. They have to undo at least a little portion of it where your parts come up to play. That's isn't happening recently, right? We did Runyon, Euclid, Practice Park, all these different examples of a coordinated effort that I don't think a lot of cities and school districts have. I just don't. I've been, just because I can speak from experience, having to knock a curb out or change an entry point to a parking lot because the city and the school district didn't talk. So I think the projects we had this year, particularly Runyon and Euclid, just took a lot of coordination. We knew we had neighbors that were going to be disrupted, right? We're sensitive to that. And I think it went just great as looking back on it, the way we talked, the way we were able to meet, and not just, hey, here's a text, here's an email. It's hey, we need to meet at the location and walk it. The Littleton group is so great about doing that, especially with Brad and them. So we really appreciate that part of it. A couple other things that were said: consistent communication. especially when it comes to safer streets, talking about the ins and outs of that and the work that goes with that. We're fully invested in that, obviously. Again, I'll have some comments on the transportation plan as well and what some of our priorities are with that. But no, I think the relationship is really good. I don't see any negative aspects of it. Any relationship can be stronger. But I think as far as cities and school districts go, we feel like it's a lot of times Brad will say it's the same team. Right, it's just the same team. We can talk to each other. We can reach out with each other. I talked to Josh quite a bit about it and just walk many lots and streets with Josh in the streets. And I also think, just so you know, we're willing to act, right? We have an action, a bias for action. We try to, so sometimes we can move quickly and make those decisions a little faster maybe than sometimes public entities can do, like a city or a town. And we're willing to do that. So just know in the future, as we make these plans, we're with you and we'll be decisive when the time comes. We won't drag feet or slow anything down. And we have other things that we're looking at. So I'll be eager to hear about the transportation plan and then maybe field any questions. And I would also say from a transportation plan standpoint, the overarching view is we want our kids to come to school and back from school safely, right? Whether that's as a walker, whether that's as a rider, whether that's riding with their mom and dad or grandma and grandpa in the car. It doesn't matter what their mode is. We want to optimize their safety. That's the biggest part of it. We think about it all the time. And as much as it may seem like our biggest priority is going to be academic performance, and certainly that's up there and we're real happy where that is. At the same time, nothing's more important than the safety of our kids, right? I mean, we're all there. We think about that. We never stop thinking about it. And we feel like the city's a great partner with that. I'll just stop talking and take some.
Well, that's good to hear. So what I'm hearing from you loud and clear is communication, it works really well. You feel like that there's a collaboration as well.
Super easy to work with Kenna and team. I'll give them that for sure, right? Responsive emails. I mean, we can send each other stuff and get back with each other pretty quick. It's not the same with all of our partners. I'm not dogging on any of them, but everybody's got things to do. It just feels like we're a priority when it comes to the city. We appreciate that.
You were saying we're better than Centennial. Did you just say that?
Josh, more than half of our students live in Centennial, and I never said that. I love my friends in Centennial. I would say this, there's a proximity about the relationship that's different than Centennial. It's not bad. I will also, something else I think is important, I'll just mention it out loud. I have regular meetings with Jim Becklenburg. We check in, we're both from Indiana. He went to IU the same time my wife was there. Love working with Jim, and we started to invite Matt Sturgeon, city manager of Centennial, to join us. Just for conversations and trying to cross some of those divides, right? Because like I said, we have more students that live in Centennial than actually live in Littleton. So that, and I don't think a lot of people understand that, right? I mean, just it's a kind of a shock when you hear that. It's pretty close, but at the same time, we'd love to continue building that relationship, and we're working on it with them. With Christine Sweetland, knowing her as a former board member, it's in different things. We have great relationships with them, and we'd like to continue to make them stronger. They're not where they are with Littleton, and a lot of it's just time, habit, familiarity. A lot of the relationships we have with the city of Littleton, their students are in our schools. We know them as parents, we know them as friends, and that's a great thing. We really like that. But no, I'd love to take questions, answer anything I can. Practice Park was amazing. I just want to get one more plug in for that. It was such a fun partnership at that. We're doing so many, I think, important things at East. A lot of places, in fact, coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to the state school board convention. And one of the things, we're doing a presentation just on East, right? Because you're hearing a lot about closing schools in the state, and you see a lot of stuff about here's the right way to close a school. Well, okay, that's a pretty emotional thing, but what did you do as a result of it, right? If you have a location, so East, East is full. It is absolutely full. There is no room for another community partner at East. We have already, in just a short period of time, made it financially feasible, where the folks who are taking the space have taken over the money part of it, so they're self-sustaining. So we're excited about that, and to have the practice park there is just fantastic. It's so visible, and a lot of walkers over there and kids on bikes, and we see them all the time. So thank you for that. It's much appreciated.
So I'll ask a question since there's silence.
All right, Jeff.
One of the things that we have seen, and I have seen, is getting kids to and from LPS. And I think it's not just LPS, this is citywide, if not a nationwide issue, very car centric.
For
A
sure.
lot of automobiles going going through those school zones during pickup and drop off times. I'm curious if you're doing anything or if it's anywhere on your radar in trying to encourage other modes of transportation. Well, it's a couple part question. So, because along with that is what can we do to help with that? There's the pedestrian and bicyclist side of it. There's also the school bus side of it. And as a former parent of LPS kids, I know that there's a lot of struggles with busing. It's unfortunately a downward cycle, right? Because not enough kids are getting on the buses to justify sending the buses, which means you're not sending as many buses, which means that now there's fewer buses for kids to take, which means that they have
Stretches route, takes longer.
It keeps going downhill like that. So I'm curious if there's anything that you guys are working on or thinking about to try to get that spiral going in the direction.
There are. We haven't put many of them into action yet. I think our priority this year was we had two really tough spots at Euclid and Runner. And so we needed to we felt like that was immediate need, right? Just right at DEFCON 1, we needed to get, for example, we needed to get as many cars off of Elati as we could to stack at Runyon. We used to stack 5, 6, maybe on the best day. Now we can stack about 20 or so, 25. That alleviates. I know that's not what you're asking, but I just want to give you some examples of things we're doing to lead up to that. Trying to have cutout at Euclid that makes more sense for passengers. And the students getting out of the cars. You think about it, 25 years ago, it was rare to see as many cars. And a lot of times when a car would drive up to the school, 3 or 4 kids would get out.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many cars in line had one parent, one child, right? It's just the society we live in. And you take that in narrow streets in a neighborhood where a school was built not to have that kind of car traffic, and you can see. So from a priority standpoint, we needed to take care of those schools. Some of the things we're looking at are satellite stops. Talked to Josh about some of those as well. Like, for example, before we did the construction at Runyon, one of the things we talked about was could we put a bus up at, say, Culver's or an area up at there and have a lot of the open enroll parents or parents who are in that proximity drop the students off there, keep them out of that congested area, never let them get down in Eastern, Fremont, in that area, and just bring them in on one bus. We haven't activated that yet because we want to see what the impact is of the Runyon construction first and see. It's still tight there. Even with the best conditions, it's still tight, and they've knocked several minutes off their loading in the morning and unloading in the evening. But even then, it's a tight fit. So yeah, we're looking at satellite stops. We constantly encourage bike use, whether it's through our curriculum, whether it's through our principals giving messaging. We've not been overly successful, frankly. We still get in situations in society that is last minute. They want to take the ride. That's just the way they work. And so we do our best, but satellite stop is probably one of them. Communication and curriculum. I know we've had some conversations about SROs and others having bike safety curriculum between the bells. We're pretty protective of what happens between the bells with curriculum and access to our students. This is one that makes sense, and we could support that. We need some work there just to explain to the students why the different mode of transportation would be beneficial to the communities they live in. And at the same time, if we're going to say bike to school, we need to make it safe to bike to school. And so there's the complementary partners that have to work together with our messaging.
And what about the buses, the transportation side?
It's a challenge for one of the first times since I've been here, we are fully staffed. That took a while, and we've had a couple of things that we've had to do to get it to that point. We've had some situations with alternative times that have inconvenienced families at the end of the day. But by and large, if you look around the metro area at the situation you're describing, we're in about as good a shape as anybody could be in. There are, our neighbors to the south have rolling blackout times for their kids, right? Their families have to be pretty invested in that transportation, and that's just because they can't get drivers. It's very difficult. You think back to when we were all in school, most of our drivers were, where I lived in Indiana, they were farmers. They were retired citizens who were great, could take care of the bus, and that group is sort of dried up. And so to try to convince someone to bookmark their day on the front end and the back end, it takes a person that's got a special circumstance to be able to pull that off. So we're trying to do our best for recruiting, and thank goodness we're full right now, and all of our routes are running on time. And at that point, I would tell you it's still tenuous, right? I mean, when you think about paying hourly wage to our drivers, there are options for them. There's a huge competition for hourly rates in that area. We see it with classified staff in the schools competing with businesses. It's no different for bus drivers. You know, if they can go make $5 an hour more and have a better condition, they may opt for that. And so it's not as permanent as it used to be. Buses are expensive. We've collapsed routes. There's a lot of things. And I think a lot of times people sometimes have the misconception that transportation to school on a bus is like a right. It's part of their work. It's actually a privilege. It's not a obligation from that we have unless a student has special needs and it's in a individualized education plan. And at the same time, we would never want to give that up. We know our families count on it. So we're going to work hard to keep our staff full, keep our buses working for our families.
How many buses are in the system?
Think about that for a minute.
Hundreds? I just have no idea.
No, it's less than 100. Yeah, no, it's less than 100, more than 20 for sure. I'm just thinking about the schools and where we are, somewhere around 65 or so, I'd say. But I could be wrong. Somebody can correct me on that. I can follow up on that one.
I was curious.
But our fleet,
yeah,
it gets smaller every year.
One thing that's kind of come up in a lot of the discussions with the transportation master plan is we've been looking at possibly expanding the definition of like the street sections that are going to eventually influence the engineering design standards. And one of the things that came up was like maybe a school-centric section that would kind of better define what a condition that would be most effective to serve the school, but also the residential. And things that have come up as safety, like reducing speed limits, reducing drive widths, but also like how do you account for like loading areas? A lot of those kind of like how the street serves and how the street functions around the school.
I've seen that play out at Euclid for sure.
Has there been anything that you have seen or any type of ideas that you guys have on things that might be more effective at serving and getting the kids in and out and parents and everything else?
Yeah, I think if we were to get ourselves on, you know, when the transportation plan starts rolling, we would start thinking about things like, for example, the cutout at Euclid right there in front there has made a huge difference. So we would look for partnerships that where your line ends and our line begins, better ways to serve, certainly how we position parking lots, how we control traffic that's coming into the school lot and coming out of the school lot and how we plan for that. Those are certainly critical aspects of it, where we position guards, where we have walkways, all those things comprehensively would play into that. Yeah, we'd have a lot of ideas, you know, depending on the circumstance and what the blueprint, so to speak, look like. We would certainly weigh in on what's worked for us based on the environment and ecosystem that we look at the school. And the best one I can give you right now are the two we just worked on and what we've done. Like, for example, at Runyon, we have 3 buses at Runyon. But it doesn't seem like a big deal, but because of the congestion there in front of the school, 3 buses can present quite an issue there. So we did a cutout, right? We drove back onto our property and turned them around, just things like that. So depending on the circumstances, the intersections and the roads you're talking about, we would definitely be invested in that. It could provide a lot of help there.
Absolutely, and we would definitely love to kind of see some of your like ideas if you have like visual aids, stuff like that you've put together. That brainstorming, how do we present this? But from what I know, sometimes next year there's probably gonna be some very pointed like public input processes that'll happen for the transportation master plan. But I would love to have kind of like both touch points so that we can have an idea. And then when it comes up to that point, we can also put it in there just so we can get the input from the community.
We would like that. And you know, I brought up Tim, you know, some of those guys, Tim, Mike, those guys, we've done a lot with them and they've had a lot of input. That's the thing I like about it. When I've had previous situations where we've done work on site in the city, you know, you're playing phone tag, you're checking in. Hey, I didn't know you guys were doing this. I didn't know, what is this? We didn't have those issues with these big construction projects. We knew what the right hand, left hand were doing. I think we also did a nice job of responding to the public together. There were times where we would meet with our neighbors at Euclid in particular and Runyon. And, you know, people like their locations. They like their homes. We understand that. They don't want to be disrupted. We're sensitive to that as best we can. And but yeah, I thought this year was a great year for collaboration, communication. We never feel like we don't know what the city's doing.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to comment on, 2 things is, first one, we had kids at all Runyon, Euclid, Heritage at different varying times. And our kids walk home a lot from Heritage to, you know, the free, like over Easter. And the walking path that you all created to accommodate the high schoolers walking across, Runyon was fantastic. You know, it's such, the open campus is such a big part of the experience of being in these schools. And they used to walk through slush and snow on the side of a grassy hill.
Cling to that.
You know,
It's not that wide.
Yes, and
I
I,
think we have a picture of a high school student walking over the ice, holding onto the fence.
Yeah, we were. So they was singing on this curve. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the superintendent. This
Kid's doing it right here.
I think a lot of other places would have put up barriers, you know, for the high school kids and said, find a different path, you know, and that was not the approach. And I really appreciated that, you know, where they made a formal path, you know, through there to accommodate the kids. And that was fantastic. So I wanted to say thank you for that first. That was amazing. And then secondly, you know, to Derek's point, you know, we've been chatting about potentially having educational corridors, you know, of, you know, Little Raven is on Windermere, you know, 3 schools are on, in essence, Alati, you know, you could say. We have Ridge, we have Kaylee. These are, if we could get those to be considered educational corridors and work with LPS on that, and then have that reflected potentially in the transportation master plan, you know, and then from a transportation mobility board, we've been chatting a lot about, you know, once money becomes available for some of these projects to make safer streets, having the first area of focus be these educational corridors.
We would appreciate that priority because what you're really doing is prioritizing the children and the staff of LPS for those endeavors, and we appreciate that.
And we think like the most vulnerable people get the precedent first, you know, and I think that would make a ton of sense. So it would be fantastic if and when that time does come to work with LPS to advocate to council, to staff, you know, to others, to say, we all want to work on this together, you know, and
We would be partners in that. I think we're modeling that already. I don't know how Ken and Shane see it, but I mean, I feel like the partnership right now is the strongest it's ever been.
Yeah.
That feels good. Yeah, but I like that idea.
I want to swing back to the bus. You know, Denver lets the kids ride the RTD buses. They give them a pass and whatnot. Is that an avenue that might alleviate some of your stress if we were to get some sort of bus
The
system?
hard part is that a lot of times there's an extra step in there to get them to that location. Sure, if a family lives close to a stop and they can leverage that, and then the destination or wherever they go gets them close to their school. But you know, the way it's set up, the way a bus or anything like that is set up, they're not point to school. And I think we become a society where it's like, you know, I want to be efficient. We're not going to do any of the things that are inconvenient. We're going to get in our car. We're going to go to point A. We're going to go to the school and drop you off. I've not seen the public transportation make a big difference. It can a little bit, but it's a select group, and a lot of it just depends on where they live.
challenge of that. My eldest went to Colorado's Finest, if you know that, right by Sprouts.
Yeah, right.
And we lived off Broadway, right off Fremont, right by there. And she was like, I am not going up there and taking the bus with strange people, you know, and then, but more so like feeling unsafe, but more so like with unreliable times. If I miss it, I have to wait 30 minutes, you know, there was a whole bunch of factors like that. So that was a hurdle, I would say, of trying to get.
Trying to leverage it so that we can get a lot more.
Yes.
One other thing, a good example of something that's just happened in coordination. Once we got the Runyon project done, we recognized that our heritage kids that were coming down the hill on Easter wanted to make that left right there. And you know, we had the example of the intersection that was a little different there. That's wonky right there, right? So you got people coming south on Alati to turn in. You have the buses coming in. You got people coming the other way that want to jump in that line. And then to top it all off, that group coming down Easter's trying to navigate into that space. Quite often they would have to go down around the calming circle and come back, or more often than not, just jam in, right? And so the people that are outside running, the staff members are wonderful out there. They're trying to stop that. The simple remedy, we just needed between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, don't make a left turn there. If you could just give our people enough time to get all of it done, and that's been wonderful, just communicating, getting signage, just talking about that. And then we're also talking with our students that make that trip. When you get to, you know, that spot farther back at Fremont, you just take that left, don't take that right, and, you know, get away from that space. It's just education. And we think that situation will continue to get better. But again, cooperation, right? Pick up the phone, talk with those guys and talk with the city and just move as quick as you can when you can see a situation. I'm not sure a lot of school districts and cities do that. Not like that.
I can tell you, talking to people that kind of do what I do, but elsewhere, I've told my successes that, we've gotten together, we've talked these things through, and a lot of them are like, we talk to a principal and they say, our responsibility ends at the sidewalk. And we're not even gonna think about traffic patterns. We're not even gonna think about these things. They just don't even want the liability. And so, you're thinking all the way back to Fremont and Broadway, and what these kids are thinking about going to high school. And so it's commendable. And I do want you to know that you're a standout in all of that. And so
we appreciate your advocacy. We have walked a few times and we've seen some things. I mean, Josh and I saw it one time and watched just all kinds of things converge at that intersection and realized that 25 years ago, not a problem, right? You had 10 cars, maybe 5, a couple of buses, most of them walked. It's just not the world we live in now.
School choices, what's the percentage for most schools at LPS right now for school choice?
Depends on school, but we're about 22% open enrollment somewhere.
So when you have a Runyon that has 440 kids, that's 88 kids that are coming from outside boundary or school bus service.
Heritage High School's about 40% open.
I mean, and that's a much bigger school. That's a couple thousand.
But think of where they're positioned in relationship to the others. They impact it.
Yeah.
But the kids have been great. Our kids are awesome. I think when I listen to people talk about, the kids today, the kids today are great. and I love our heritage kids. And we've talked to a lot of those drivers and like, oh, absolutely. We'd be glad to do that. I went to Runyon, that kind of stuff. And so they've been cooperative by and large.
Yeah. I wanted to chat for a second about, the flip of, it used to be, I think 87% of kids rode their bike or walked to school. Now it's 11% or something like that.
And dropping.
Nationwide, yeah. Have you seen the bike buses that they've done in Oregon?
I'm aware of the one we tried here, I think at one point last year, right at Euclid. And I'm aware of the concept for sure. Yeah.
I think for probably a lot of it, it's normalizing riding to school again, is a big part of the hurdle. Because like a lot of people, like my kids are like, I'd be embarrassed if someone saw me walking. And I'm like, what? Like that's how you move your body. and it's just so perplexing. This is a mentality.
It's fundamental level.
It's just so flabbergasting. But I think the bike buses could be pretty powerful, and I think one thing that bike buses could do is demonstrate a need for bike lanes. Like when kids are coming down Fremont, taking Easter over, I've rode my bike with my daughter many times. And there's like intermittent cars parked on the side and they're just weaving in and out in front of the cars trying to get to the school, going around. And it feels like there's not a space for a person on a bike.
Yeah. I sat at Easter one time with a person watching traffic, looking down at Eladi up Easter just a little bit. And between the narrow sidewalks, you have kids, the cars are coming, people are walking, kids are coming down that sidewalk fast and somebody comes around the curve and they're coming right at them and they're jumping up into a yard to avoid them. And then there's cars on the street that are there and it's just a challenge, right? It's just a different time. It was like anything else, it evolves and you fix it.
Yeah, it would be cool, I think, to have like a number on the school of like the percent of people who rode their bikes today, and try to raise that and show that to the kids, and have it, because like there's a very, in the Runyon courtyard, there's a very small amount of bikes, and you could have like this is the percent that rode their bikes. We're trying to increase this,
Well, and I will say, so we just had our LPS coordination meeting that we have monthly. So we were talking with Marcy about this on Wednesday, of trying to better track how kids are getting to school, right? And like LPS has the school bus information and, you can anecdotally see the amount of cars and whatnot, but how can we start to get more of that data, especially when we're looking forward to future grant applications, like a Safe Routes to School grant application, having that data is a big piece of that. And so we are actively working with LPS to figure out how can we get some survey questions out? What is the right avenue for that?
I mean, that's fantastic. Right?
Yeah. And so I know Marcy's kind of gonna track that down and it's like, how can the city promote that? How can that be promoted on the school side too, so that we can start at least knowing what our baseline is so that we can know where we can improve from there.
And I do think that there's like millions of dollars behind these decisions, because right, if it's getting really bad, and it gets worse, then these projects are incredibly expensive to revamp everything. And so like, if we can get some kids to voluntarily ride their bikes and then start to get that to a more reasonable middle point, then all of a sudden we're like, oh, our infrastructure is sufficient. We don't have to do any more of these huge projects, which would be wonderful.
It would be wonderful.
So Kelly, did you have a question you wanted to ask? You're on mute now.
Yeah, I just took a minute to get there. Well, I was trying to, is this like just free for all Q&A? Is that where we just, I'm trying to.
That's what it's turned into, yeah.
That's what it's turned into, I see, okay. I don't know how off course this is or if it was discussed at all, and I don't even know if LPS has any role in driver's education curriculum. Yeah, is that is offered at the.
We have driver's ed. It's a little different the way we do it. Lots like the way we used to, where everybody does. There's a lot of independent schools and things like that, but we absolutely have folks that teach driver's ed and offer that. It's not the same format as it used to be. I don't know enough about the timing of it and exactly when they do it, but we do offer some things. Yeah.
And is it something? Is it?
That I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know enough about it. It's not a large number. It's not a big part of our organization like it used to be back in the day when we took driver's ed through our high schools. It's just not as big as it was, but I can sure find out some information about it.
Just curious, the curriculum, right, or the level to influence it, enhance it, right? I don't know where that burden lies, and obviously I'm sure there's regulation around it too, of course. But it'd be interesting to see what level it takes around, the full environment, right? Not just operating the vehicle and like,
Right. I have to tell you, Kelly, I don't know enough about it, but I'll sure find out. It's a good question.
I don't either, obviously. So.
Right. Thank you.
But I will say that is something that I know have ongoing conversations with our LPS coordination meetings as well, as that kind of curriculum piece, which really feeds into like that culture change side of safer streets that we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
So yeah, I think, we're also trying to find out on our end too, the kind of driver education piece. I know there's some, Emily, on our staff has looked into some other kind of like bike education for drivers. And I know we're trying to work with Melissa on the curriculum side of LPS too, of what opportunities are there for the city to, help provide information or, beef up some of that curriculum around, like, what are those opportunities? So we are exploring that as well.
I can tell you that one of the things I'm working on with CDOT is, they were putting out new curriculum this year, like December, something like that, for K-8 on safe driver training for young kids. And they're going to start incorporating more safe driving practices into those younger grade level curriculums, more like what does it mean to do patient driving, and what does aggressive driving look like, and the dangers around speeding, and teaching the little kids that don't even drive yet. So hopefully you can make some core memories before because most kids, when they get to 16, they just have 16 years of bad role modeling that they have to deal with. And so, but that's something that we're working on. And that's turns out curriculum's hard to make. It's a really long-term project. But also DugCo just put out their I-5 program. And I don't know if you're even familiar with that, but it's just teaching kids to make eye contact and raise your hand when you use a crosswalk. Interesting. And it's like a really simple concept that you start with these young kids. And so I just learned about that this week. So that's something I was going to share with you too.
Very good.
But there's things out there. And I actually wanted to ask you about, with the practice park now done, is there any encouragement to our schools to utilize that as a regular part of their?
We've already started talking about how do we do it. You don't have a lot of schools close to it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're over there. So your closest is, you got Little Raven and a couple others, but I think we're trying to figure it out as best we can at this point. A lot of times that work is done in the spring, summer as you plan.
Yeah.
One of the things we've talked about at times to deliver, it's one thing to have it, how is it delivered in the schools? I can't tell you how great the relationship is in our schools with our SROs. If our SROs talk to our kids about safety, they listen. I mean, there's a lot of trust there. And so that might be a really nice way. They're busy, they have things to do, but just finding different ways to leverage that with our folks. The other thing I would add, what was the thing, the charrette?
Charrette.
Charrette, yeah, new word for me too. An example of what we would be interested in, we certainly have a vested interest, east of Broadway on Littleton Boulevard and how that all is planned out there. We have plans down the line. They're pretty abstract right now, but they won't be for long. And so this would be an example where we would want to partner on anything done down there, just because it could have impact on our easements, how we handle things in and out of what Littleton High School will look like, if anything's done up there. So please keep us with that. And I know we will.
Epic campus is right there too, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that partnership extend to funding? I guess we talk a lot about funding and how challenging it is to build new infrastructure. Does your budget allow for transportation funding immediately around schools, or is it strictly the building and what's inside of it?
No, I mean, it's a trick question a little bit, right? I mean, it depends on how we justify it and what we want to use. I think what you're asking is if we get out beyond the school grounds, how do we spend that
I'm
money?
thinking sidewalks. I live right by Euclid.
Right.
What's been done there in front of the school is amazing. You go 100 feet in either direction, it's terrible.
It drops off, right? Yeah, we fix that little part.
Right.
It's like that nice area down in Ducko where you drive through the thing, but when you get on either side of it, it goes down to 2 lanes. I think, no, not normally. We tend to, that's city, because it's not our property. So a lot of times we wouldn't invest in that now. If you're talking about being innovative and looking for a project or something like that, we'd always be open to any ideas for sure. I think we ought to quit thinking about entities being completely separate. Yeah. You get more bang for the buck with your taxpayers too, if you look at things that we could do together.
Right, well, and I think like
Typically not.
Euclid was a good example of that, of how can we take advantage of the bond project and the roadway pavement management project, right? And honestly, we were able to accomplish what the city was able to do on Euclid because LPS was doing their project and was giving us easement to widen onto their property. Otherwise, we would have had to widen into people's yards, which is never popular, and there's utility poles and it becomes way more expensive. So that was a really great opportunity for LPS is like, absolutely, you can widen into ours so that you can get the actual facility space that I'm looking for.
And it turned out fantastic.
Yeah.
But in a lot of places, one of us would have gone first and the other one would end up chopping up a curb.
Exactly.
And the people that would have been around the area would have gone, why don't they work together? So we just cut to the chase.
So one thing, just kind of something that I've noticed a lot of school programs is like, we have a lot of emphasis on driver education for a lot of teenagers and high schoolers. But there's not really a lot of education about like, what are actual bike laws? When you're riding on a bike, where should you ride? What are your hand signals? What about pedestrian? Like, where do you cross? Why is it crossing? Like, you may hear things like jaywalking, which is something that's fully enforced in a few big cities, but it is a concept about putting people in safer locations and such. But is that something that LPS has engaged in?
We definitely have done some work with bike safety that the city's aware of, and certainly we teach bike safety rules. I would say it's not as consistent as, say, math curriculum across the system. A lot of it will hinge on the school. But we try our best at the right time to do that because we recognize it's also an opportunity, like you're talking about, to encourage bike riders. Right, and to let them have confidence that they can believe they can do it. And the more forewarned you are about rules and things like that, the more likely you are to go and do that. You'll feel more confident in yourself that you can protect yourself.
Have you seen the practice park?
The practice park
At East? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, on the bus, we did, yeah.
Yeah, because I think, that's a great opportunity to start, we have a place to start teaching that type of curriculum, obviously, and as Todd mentioned, figuring out how that fits into the curriculum, right? And what does that look like? But LPS does have a fleet of bikes, and then the LPS Foundation also donated more money this year so that we could expand that bike fleet, which is great. So I feel like we're getting the pieces together, right?
It's just one of the things, like, obviously high school kids may look at going to elementary as like something uncool and popular. It's just one of the things, like, how do we get the generation that's going to be most active in some of these, like, more engaged, because they have some very unique views of the world sometimes.
So I want to be respectful of your time. Really appreciate your comment. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to ask of us or that you'd like us to be thinking about?
No, we're good. I just had to check my notes. Marcy, thinking about Brad. I just had to make, did I miss anything? Cause I'll hear about it if I don't. So no, I think we're good. We appreciate the partnership. Thinking about sitting here tonight, it feels really good. Really appreciate the folks that work hard at the city to do this work, right? They seem to care just as much about our kids as we do. And I love that, right? When Mike and Tim and those guys are sitting around the table with us, you can tell they're vested. It's awesome.
Well, I had a question for you. This came up this week when we were talking is, would there be an opportunity for the students at Euclid, Runyon, might be young, maybe they need a modified version or in Heritage to take the Elati Street corridor study, the survey, because they're using it just as much as everybody else. And if we could squeeze that in as a social studies, something,
Yeah, I mean, we certainly want to take a look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
User friendly, depending on what you have. But I think if there were some core questions, certainly our new drivers and our bikers might have some input. Yeah. Our kids are generous with their feedback.
I'm a little nervous about how sarcastic it might come across when
No,
you're asking
right.
middle schoolers.
I think if you have an expectation that they respond and let them know that they're contributing members to the community, our kids will rise up.
Yeah, I think so.
Every time.
And we were chatting with the mayor the other day and he was saying, it really doesn't feel right to have this survey and to not have really broad participation from Euclid and Runyon and Heritage and all these students. So, yeah.
What did you tell Nikki?
Like, kids are gonna have to read a lot.
Right. Let's do it after Thanksgiving.
Well, and I will say, we've had the Heritage Student Ambassador Program as part of the Elati Corridor study.
Yeah.
So we've gone and presented to, and it's been, self-selecting after school hours, so a little different than what you're talking about, Josh. But as at the end of that, if they've kind of done all the homework assignments, which a lot of that is going out and talking to folks in the community and getting them to fill out the survey, get their thoughts on things. They can get like a letter of rec. At the end of it, trying to entice them.
Yeah, sure.
Scholarships and for college applications. But I think, as we're looking forward to the Transportation Master Plan update, how can this program be citywide potentially? Is it just with high school? Is that the right age group? Is it all ages? So I think we're really open to how do we engage students? We agree, like they're the ones that are going to school every day. Like we want to hear their opinions.
Well, I would just say on behalf of the school district, thanks for caring about them too. I can feel that. And I know it's on your minds and the way you look at it, it's really awesome to have partners that love our kids just as much as we do. That's great.
Yeah, kind of just one little thing. I'm obviously you guys have a lot of students and stuff, but if like some of the students are looking for opportunities like to speak, to engage in the public, to kind of find out more about city processes, I would encourage like spreading the word to have them come to the TMB meetings to bring their input if they have concern, if they want to, have an instance to speak in front of people if they've never done that, or just see how government is. I think this is a great opportunity to get them engaged and involved.
Appreciate the offer.
And it's only 3 minutes.
There you go. We understand 180 seconds, trust me. I'm in meetings too.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
It's great to hang out with you. Thank you very much. Have a great Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thanks for your time.
All right, you guys take care.
Impressed with how you use your iPad.
It's getting beat up on my way. It's not looking real great right now. It doesn't look as nice as your fancy.
Yeah.
All right.
It's getting used.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Always good to see you.
Don't forget your coat.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
You noticed as soon as you got outside.
All right.
Actually cool out tonight.
We might. When do you think we'll get snow? December 1st?
3 a.m.
January?
Not very much, though. We don't need a snow day.
My kids have the opposite perspective. They really, really like snow.
Well,
I'm sure they do.
All right. Moving on. So what I was hoping to do next, 20 minutes, let's call it, in that neighborhood, was to talk a little bit about, as we do every time, right? We talk about the upcoming agenda items. We have some thoughts on the next 3 months, 4 months out. But what I really want to do is get feedback from the board on what do we want our agenda to look like for 2026? What do we think the top priorities are going to be? Realize we only meet 12 times. We can't take on everything. And so if we want to get some things done, we have to really focus in and have some
focus.
Quick preface question are we doing the TMB in 2026? Yeah, because that was up in the air if the TMP, sorry, was going to be in 2026 or not, and that would presumably greatly impact the agenda.
Yeah, do you want me to do the 5 minutes?
Sure, much, yeah.
Because that'll be
Screw my agenda, man.
very optimistic, you know, of what we try to chat about.
Yeah, I thought you were asking if we're gonna do the TMB in 2020.
That's
That was our assumption.
Council meeting. Yeah, so the TMP update, so this week we found out, you know, the city manager's office and leadership of public works have been coordinating on kind of the timeline a little bit. And so we found out this week that March 10th is when council wants to see that scope of work from staff. And so we'll be working to refine that, not only respond to internal comments, but meet with council beforehand, especially the new council, and say, hey, this is our idea so far. Please give us your feedback. And so that March 10th meeting, which will be a study session where right now we're planning on covering, it sounds like all things transportation, safer streets, the report on progress from the previous TMP, and then the scope of work for the upcoming update. We'll cover that all on March 10th. And so the idea is that on March 10th, it's really like, hey, you guys, yes, you've not just checked the box, but you have met all the expectations we've had in meeting from council and addressing staff comments. And then so it would hit the streets very, very shortly thereafter, the solicitation. And that would be kind of how we kick off, so.
So we would probably be looking at about the June, July of when everything is, I think it would probably gonna start rolling.
Yeah, so contracting is always, you know, kind of a up in the air thing, but yeah, that would probably be a reasonable timeline. So yeah, late second quarter, so.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
So this is and early 2028 is probably best case as to when the actual new TMP is the shelves.
Yeah, so right now we're kind of anticipating an 18 to 20 month timeline. So yeah, if we kick off in mid 26, right, we'd wrap up at end of 27, early 28 is what we're thinking. So, and there's a few reasons behind that. I mean, one of them is just to, you know, get the new council up to date, right? It's also to make sure, you know, with Zorene's project that we're not interfering too much. Some of the feedback we've gotten is there's some confusion between like, hey, these like, what's the difference between like this sub area plan and the TMP and stuff like that. So making sure there's enough separation that's clear while also coordinating with those two projects.
And introducing the word charrette into it too.
Right, we'll use charrette as much as we can. So.
What's your expected funding cost that you're gonna ask council for the TMP?
Yeah, so I don't know, because this is a public forum, I don't know this will come out eventually, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's already in council.
Okay, yeah, so $1.5 million is what we have, which for a planning project is very large. So I think the first TMP we did for around $300,000 or $400,000. And granted, that was a little different because a good chunk of public engagement was pulled out into Envision, which was the first 9 months, and then the TMP was the second 9 months. So that's not a quite apples to apples comparison, but that is a pretty healthy budget.
That's about double the Littleton area sub.
Yeah, yeah, and this is a citywide plan, and a good chunk of that will be public engagement. One of the phrases that I don't know who said it, but has been circulating is, you know, the population of Littleton is 45,595, and we did the 45,000, not just the 595. We show up to every meeting, but we appreciate you guys. We want to make sure that, you know, we are talking to those residents, right, who don't show up to things maybe because of the schedule, or, you know, they're maybe not really sure how transportation impacts their day to day. And so making sure that we do a really good job on our engagement. We'd rather people at the end of the TMP be like, I'm tired of hearing about the TMP.
We are so sick of seeing arty faces.
Yeah.
Housing ordinance style scenario.
Yeah.
How that felt to people. I'm not gonna say how it was because there's lots of advance notice, but how it felt.
Yeah, and part of that process too is making sure that we communicate in a way that is received by the recipient, right? And not just ways that we kind of do it, you know, every project, I guess. We obviously are gonna do those same avenues, but working with, one of the things that we want to get in the team that we hire is somebody in public engagement and in stakeholder engagement that really like takes it to the next level and says, hey, here's the way you go get those people who don't ever participate or don't have the time, or just people you never hear from, so.
That investment of 1.5, and I know we've talked about in this room, is that gonna save on having to do a Windermere corridor study, a Prince corridor study? Like, is it gonna
Right.
be cost savings.
Right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're bouncing around internally is do we, because we did not get that grant, as we found out this last summer, right, from the federal government to look at all 10 corridors as identified by Safer Streets is do we take some of this $1.5 million and do some higher level, not, I don't want to say light touch because I don't want to make it seem like we're just passing it over, but not as in-depth maybe as a Lottie, but still enough that we can have a series of projects that come out of those corridor deep dives as a part of the TMP. And so that's what we're figuring out exactly, so.
Yeah, I think the corridor studies is still kind of a question mark. We're playing around with some ideas and what can that look like through this TMP process. We're also, aware that a lot of these corridors are on upcoming pavement management programs in coming years. So it's like, what can we do between now and when they're gonna go do the pavement management, which is really our best opportunity to reduce striping or do quick build materials,
Retrofits.
or retrofits.
Or permanent build.
Or permanent build.
Charity
Our
pass.
stacks of cash lying around. But so I think, it's, we're kind of in this balancing act too, of trying to figure out, how we want to talk to the community. When can we talk to the community? When is pavement management coming in? When do we have to have stuff ready to go get contractors, 6 months in advance? So it's all that to say we're figuring it out.
Isn't it who decides on pavement management? Isn't that the city?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we have like our CIP, our pavement management schedule, right? And
Yeah.
so
Right.
that's decided, there's some flexibility in that, but making sure that, these things are already scheduled out. So how do we take advantage of those opportunities? Like if we know, for example, let's say, we know Lottie is coming up in 27,
Yes.
right? So, 27 or 28.
One of those.
And so how do we use the recommendations from the corridor study to get something into play a little bit more than we could because the management is going to take place in just a couple years, right? As opposed to just kind of doing a plan that's separate from that. And then the pavement gets done and then people, are like, hey, you guys have this study and you did the pavement management, but these things don't line up, right? So making sure we identify those opportunities.
Yes, and we are meeting pretty regularly with our pavement team, the CIP team, and water resources, trying to figure out the coordination between all of them. I will say, a lot of the corridor studies that we were hoping to do through these big federal grants were already on the pavement management schedule, and so they've been going in a couple of years, hoping that we get this grant and have the opportunity to do all this planning. And since we did, they've already been delayed. So it's trying to figure out, okay, can we delay it a couple more years, or are we even gonna be in place? Is pavement condition so bad that we have to go and do something and then we'll have to retrofit? So we're constantly trying to figure out what that balance is and trying to do the best possible for all of our different programs.
And one thing I'd like to point out is like a lot of the sub-area plans are very customized, very focused, but if you think about it going from the 2019 plan to a sub-area plan, there's a lot of stuff in between to connect the two. Once the new TMP update is there, there's gonna be a lot of assumptions and stuff in these new specialized plans that won't have to be worked through, and that actually will provide some savings for those plans because they'll be able to use some of the new TMP items to kind of tell the story, and it will just be less customization because we'll already have some of that built in, but it'll be on a more general sense.
That is the intent, right? Like to get the design guide. That's why it's so big and so expensive.
Yeah, well, and so, the TMP is a high level document too, so it's not gonna necessarily, unless we do kind of dive into these corridors, right? But on every single street, it's not gonna say like, hey, your sidewalk should be exactly this wide and everything like that, but it will give us that network perspective, right? Give us, some guidance on generally what that looks like, right? So that will, the LEDs, which we just recently adopted, right, is downstream from the TMP. So if there's anything that changes in the TMP, that will be reflected shortly thereafter in updated LEDs, so.
Like just a quick example, like educational corridors, as Matt was saying, now the schools are identified on that. Now that's one aspect that doesn't have to be thought about later. But still helps.
All right. Any other questions on the TMP update?
That was helpful, Mel.
Are we allowed to talk about the 2026 agenda?
I was just asking a question. I was asking a question. I think that would be great.
That's awesome. All right. So why don't we take a minute and talk, Well, I don't know. How do you guys want to do this? Do you want to throw out ideas now and then we can come back and talk about what we've got on here? Or do you want to see what we've got here and then go from there?
Well, I have a question, because this is my first year, like, when do we make a recommendation to council? Is there a set time of the year that we do that, just whenever they ask?
Yeah,
for it?
we submit 2 memos a year.
Okay.
We can submit recommendations whenever we want.
Okay.
So if there's particular topics where anybody feels like we want to make a very specific recommendation,
Yeah.
we can do that.
Okay, and so I was just asking, because that may affect where we put things in the.
So our memos are March and September is the schedule that the council has said they would like them on.
Cool.
Should we just have a doc where we just start collecting these ideas and then filter through?
I feel like there's a difference between like, what do we want to learn about and what do we want to do?
Yep.
And I get that in the doing, you'd like to be educated and informed. So I see how they, connect. But there's no harm in a brainstorm. I just caution, it's not a matter of us just picking all the topics of interest per se.
Yeah.
So much as it is, what at the end of the year, what do we want to, say we
Accomplish.
did? Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Kelly, because I'm realizing I wasn't as clear in my statement as I should have been. I think what I'm looking for here is the board's our ideas on what do we want to accomplish in 2026. And to your point, Kelly, I think it was your point, but if it wasn't, I'm still going to give you credit for it. And if we have our 2 or 3 thought things of what we're trying to accomplish, that then informs what education we need or we think we need in order to be able to get there.
So I think a few of us went to the RTD, not formally hosted by RTD, but an RTD adjacent meeting the other day at East. And there was a lot of talk about circulator buses, with our crew here that we are so grateful for. And there was a lot of talk about that. And then also there were people who worked with RTD just in some capacity, talking about the possibility of having, how like RTD helped fund the link for Lone Tree, and how they can do joint financing of some of these projects. So if we were talking about like, what did we accomplish? I would love to see, a circulator bus, something like this, at the scope and scale of Littleton, maybe Centennial. I think Josh was there too, chatting about the circulator bus and RTD and all that we were at the other night. So I would love that would be my request, is to get that on the agenda.
Circulator bus?
Yeah.
That's top of my list too.
Yeah, in conjunction with RTD, and how can we get some funding? And this is something that really cuts across so many different demographics of Littleton in a really positive way, I think, with the city feeling maybe a bit divided from 3A and other things happening recently. I think this is something where we could start to find a lot of common ground and hopefully make some great progress.
Yeah, I think there's opportunity. So I am our staff liaison on the Arapahoe County Transit Study, which is, kind of in the beginning parts of that study. They're looking at existing conditions now. And we actually had our project management team meeting today, and they shared some really cool market analysis of looking at demographics and where people live. And, this is a countywide study. So it's not just Littleton, right? Centennial, Aurora, Denver South is in there, Arapahoe County. I feel like I'm forgetting some other, Inglewood. So they're starting to really look at that data of like, where are people living that would be more likely to take transit, and where walk sheds and all this stuff. So I guess all of that to say is I think that because the study's going on, the whole idea is that we're going to get some really robust recommendations out of that. Of, is it a circulator? Is it micro transit? Is it, how do we improve east-west transit connectivity? Because if you want to get to DTC, there's not a great way to do it on RTD right now, right?
The AT, bus line that goes from Arapahoe Station to DIA,
Yeah.
it's challenging to get to too.
Yeah. So I think if we could align this conversation somehow with that study, and we're hoping, I think that study is planning to wrap up next summer. I know.
Everything is glacial.
But I think, and I'll have to look back at that project schedule, because I don't know, it would have to wait until that project's ended, right? But I think having some information from that project will help this conversation, right?
And I think transportation is a rather large priority for the upcoming Colorado legislation session as well. And there was talks at that RTD meeting of how a lot of places are not like the Denver area where RTD is in control of everything. That there's like a broader one that does the interconnection, but then there's smaller regional transportation districts. And maybe do we create one with, Lone Tree Highlands Ranch Centennial, or something like that. So, but that is further down the line, yeah.
Would conversations here help your conversations with your Arapahoe County Transit? Or would you like to do it reverse?
Yes, I think so. And I definitely recommended this board as a stakeholder for that plan. They're still working through, I think, what the stakeholder engagement for that plan looks like. So I will definitely keep this group updated, because I would hope that you are somehow engaged. And there will also be public engagement as part of the project as well. So I'll definitely keep you all informed as I learn more. I think, yeah, we add it to the list, figure out when is the right time. And I shouldn't say it. I don't know if they have scope for like the project team to come, but maybe even the Arapahoe County project manager could come. That's maybe a possibility. So
Is that Jim?
It's Stephen Buckley. Works for Jim.
All right, so circulator buses. That's the first idea, or the first thought.
Way to succinctly describe that discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
At some point, we just need to move on.
I wanna put on the agenda for next year about the pilot projects. What the next stage is. We've done a lot of education on them. We've done a lot of information, but there's been a lot of community feedback. Like, I wanna see what the next step of that is, where actions and, maybe some standardization with them or such, because just about every group, left, right, middle, everything else, that is the subject of this.
And so just as an FYI for next month, and obviously this can change once we have our meeting, we do have slated to come Brent Soderlin, the Public Works Director, to talk specifically about our capital improvement program and just the budget for next year, as well as our finance director, Lori, who will talk, kind of just about funding from the city perspective, our debt financing, what that can entail. We kind of have a list defined of some other topics that I think this whole group has talked about, and Jeff and Derek in specific. So we met with them today and kind of got them prepped on that to come next month. And then we also have a pilot project presentation. So Emily and Kyle will be attending and talk about pilots, that program, that process, where we are today, how it's moving into the future. So we can definitely have more touch points throughout the year though.
Do you have anything?
I just, seeing the sidewalk fee up there on the next month's agenda, and it's like, how do we tackle that?
It's just one, that's something we've just had sitting in there for a long time, and it's all the financing, trying to think of like,
Right.
yeah, what is the
And
funding?
how can we, I guess, merge some of the massive sidewalk needs with bike lanes, because they tend to be shoulder to shoulder around the street. How can we maximize our usage and programs and paving and everything else just to achieve more?
And there's a lot of discussion in that too, of making bikes and pedestrians at the same level, like having the bike lane sidewalk level, which I think adds a ton of safety. So I think that does.
Yeah, so, I guess that would be a project or something that maybe we should look at in terms of the corridors for the whole thing. I mean, it laps into all of the various areas we're trying to come up with solutions for.
And if anything went to a vote, it seems like next year and the presidential, cycle are the best years to get things on, it seems like, is my understanding too, so.
Funding mechanisms should be something, and then the benefits and successes of shared use paths in other cities.
Kelly, is there anything that you have on your list?
Sorry, no, my lights just went out. I was distracted. No, the shared use path, like, again, but I'm trying to think of how to translate it into an action because we'd want to be able to evaluate if that's how we want them to show up in the TMP or just in future projects.
Or specifically funding, as well.
Yeah, a separate line for funding mechanisms, because we should talk about sidewalks. How do you fix our sidewalks?
I guess I'm like just trying to think of how it moves from a place of just being like, let's learn about it to because we want, when we get down to the TMP, to be able to make recommendations that, yes, shared use paths that are on the same level are the best way to go, or something along those lines.
Well, so I appreciate you typing that in, but what I'm hearing is the desired accomplishment here is make a recommendation on accelerating our sidewalk.
Mm.
And can we double task that with bike paths potentially? Yeah.
And then we roll that into the TMP.
Yeah. Cause I remember when us three, we all joined at the same time, 4 years ago-ish. I remember thinking, is the only job of the TMB just for us to get like interesting informational sessions, This is how it felt at the time, and I think I appreciate Kelly's statement and yours too, Jeff, of like, how do we start doing action, and I think that's really good.
Yeah, I hope the presentation next month will maybe help spark some ideas of where you all want to take that funding conversation of like, is there a certain path that you all feel like we need to do more research on so we can have a really robust recommendation to council and the TMP? Is there more education that needs to happen before that? So hopefully that can kind of start that conversation.
And Shane, on the pilot project, it's gonna be more of an action item, because I feel like we've gotten a sufficient amount of security, information, everything else, but we wanna be able to start bringing back some of the feedback from the community, because there are certain things that are important for the community, and there's certain very unfavored things too, and that's polite. Pretty big, making them more effective. If everybody is excited to see them out, they're a lot more willing to follow their intents.
We do have a parking lot of items too, if that would be beneficial, but I think I just cut you off, so.
I was gonna ask, are there any projects in the queue in the planning stages that we would need to weigh in on, similar like we did on Broadway and others? I'm drawing a blank, but.
Yeah, I mean, the Bulls Corridor study, which we're actually gonna back a year, so that we can focus on TMP and have that be downstream. Apparently it's my favorite word this week. Have that be downstream of the TMP. So I think the TMP is the big one. There'll be, of course, some smaller planning efforts that happen in parallel with that, but others.
Yeah, so I mean, Littleton Boulevard, you heard about today. I've talked about the Arapahoe County Transit Study. I think that's another one. I think it'll just be more informational as the Dr. Cog BRT study that I'm also a part of. That's really looking at funding mechanisms for BRT and governance, regulations, those types of things. again, that project's also just kind of at the beginning. We haven't even had like an official kickoff yet. So that will definitely be later next year that I'll have more relevant information to share with you all. Those seem to be the big ones. You know, Project Downtown is going to start phase 1 design. So I think that might be another one of interest. You know, we have a conceptual plan, but once you go from concept to actuality, you have to start making some big decisions.
Tens of millions of dollars behind those decisions too.
Yes, yes. So I do think that's another big one. I know we're going to be looking, I think we have it called the Climate Action Plan in here, and it's actually going by a different name now. I think it's a resiliency, more of like a climate resiliency study that our environmental or sustainability coordinator is helping to lead. I know ESB will be super involved with that, the Environmental Stewardship Board, but I think there's overlap here with this board as well.
Yeah, to that point, we've talked about partnering with some of the other boards or having that, you know, a representative come and vice versa. We did that.
The other jurisdiction, safe routes to school coordinator presentation. One second.
Yeah, sorry, Shane. I was asking Kenna.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. The other jurisdiction, safe routes to school coordinator presentation?
Yeah, you know, that is one, and I think this idea was from a couple of years ago, actually. We were hoping to have the Safe Routes to School coordinator from the city and county of Denver come and present. Because Denver has an actual like city funded position that their sole job is Safe Routes to School, both programmatic and infrastructure side. Denver was a little weird about coming and presenting to another municipality, but I think it's maybe worth asking that question again. I also think there's other Safe Routes to School coordinators that we could reach out to as well. I don't know if Centennial has one, but I think it's worth looking into to see.
Do you, on the TMP, do you see any other questions or issues that we're gonna need to weigh in on? And hopefully make recommendations to council in the next 12 months?
Oh. Yeah, so, and that's one of the, we're actually meeting tomorrow internally to hammer some of this stuff out. One of the things we're gonna talk about is stakeholders, but what the involvement of the TMB looks like. I mean, at the very least, we will have an update at every single meeting. We're trying to figure out the cadence of that, whether it's, you know, even months are more in depth and odd months are more kind of light touch, or what that is exactly. So you'll definitely be involved. And I think that that's something too, we need to hear feedback from you guys on, you know, what you think about our proposal when we get there, which will be in the lead up to that March 10th council meeting.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, figuring out what is the role of TMB, right? I think you heard from Zorene's presentation today, which is kind of the strategy for Project Downtown too, where like each commission gets a representative, you go to the stakeholder working group. Obviously the TMP is very much what you all are focused on. And so I think we're trying to figure out, yeah, what is TMB's role, because it is more than just any other board and commission. And so how do we utilize these meetings as well to get feedback? And I think, like Shane said, we're open to thoughts. If you all have them, it's there, you know, the 6 topics that you've already identified through this last year, the same topics that you really want to focus on. Do you want us to come in with our selected consultant team and kind of figure out what is the right touch points? I feel like I'm just talking now, so.
Well, you know, some background. So in the 2019 TMP, Kathleen Osher was kind of leading the overall vision for like vision, both sides of it. And they had a regular touch point of every 6 weeks. They went to council to provide an update. This board didn't exist at the beginning of the TMP. And so, you know, we don't know what exactly that looks like, but we want to make sure there's regular touch point and working with the city manager's office to get council's opinion on what do they see their input and your input being and what the touch points and the cadences of that, so.
So there might be some feedback too from council of if there's specific things they would like this board to really focus on.
So I'll ask another one of the board. I feel like, we've brought this up multiple times, the whole 20 is plenty thing. And every time I feel like it's just dead and gone away, I watch a council meeting and I see somebody say like, what about 20 is plenty? Yeah. So, I'll just throw that as like, do we want to just try to do some sort of a
How do we
review of what others have done and whether it's been effective, and then just deliver a recommendation to council one way or the other, say, we like it, we don't like it, or?
I think we need to have an action item around 20 is plenty, because it feels like it does get talked a lot, but there's no movement on it. And so I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, so one of the things, I think it was when you guys presented to council last summer, and the 20 is plenty came up, one of the recommendations from staff was to include in TMP update a citywide speed limit study. And so that's one of the things that we'll include in the scope, right, of whatever consultant team that we hire. And so this is kind of leading to a question, you know, maybe one of the things we want to do in the touch points of the TMB is, rather than just have these kind of high level meetings about like, here's where we are, maybe it's diving into a topic on those more in-depth nights. And maybe one of them is, hey, here's our, you know, our first look at this citywide speed limit, and, you know, what do you guys think? What's your feedback? Are we headed the right direction? Are we not?
What is it, in a not in-depth way, but is there a citywide speed limit now, or is it just based on road type?
So I think the default is 30. Yeah. So which, you know, on a Broadway would be great, but obviously on like a Getty's, right, it's not so great. So,
If it's not posted, it's just 30.
Yeah.
It's the prima facie is what they call that.
Yeah, and we still need to figure out the details of what a citywide speed limit study looks like. I'm being completely transparent with you all, so, yeah, maybe there's also opportunity if there is some like research or recommendations that you all would want to give us before we dive into that, like that's an option too, or if it really is more of that kind of feedback loop, looking at what we and the consultant team have come up with. I think we can do either or both, neither.
Did you guys see like a new prima facie being tied to the TMP then, like just as the recommendation, or would that be separate ordinance of some sort?
Yeah, you know, to be honest, I don't know how other cities have done that. I mean, the TMP is our overarching policy document, and that would be policy decision. So, I mean, I can see those things. That's where that comes from.
Yeah,
So,
we probably have to look. See, I don't know if it'd have to be a separate ordinance from council, or by council adopting the TMP, if that would be accepted. And I think personally, what I'm also looking from that is we've talked a lot about how our current speed limits on roadways don't match what we want cars to be going, or what they should be going, or what the uses are. And so, you know, looking at this as an opportunity of how do we right size these speed limits, right? What is our ultimate goal, and what other recommendations from the TMP can we utilize to get to those goals if we're not there yet? Because the biggest thing, you know, we've talked about is that changing signs typically doesn't change behavior.
That's what I was going to say, is like, it doesn't seem like that.
Right, and that's where I think maybe there's some like research work here that TMB could have some recommendations of looking into other cities that have passed 20 is plenty, and, you know, Boulder's done some reporting on it. I think Denver's not there yet, but will be in the next year or so, of how that policy has made changes or impacted behaviors or lack thereof. But we are doing a lot of big infrastructure projects, and that is the time to go in and change these speed limits. Like, I'm thinking Mineral. With all of this work going on Mineral, you know, and maybe is it now, or is it once we've, you know, put in full protected bike lanes in the next couple of, whatever that is, but.
Feels like you're narrowing at the same time.
Yes, right, that makes sense.
Then it makes sense, but if you're just putting the sign up, it does nothing.
Does nothing.
Well, is that a recommendation then that we go to the council with and say, put up photo radar?
Could
As
be
an action item.
Should we have a photo radar conversation?
Well, enforcement is gonna be something, you can change the speed limits all you want, but if nobody enforces it, nobody's gonna follow it. But at the same time, having certain enforcement is very popular, certain enforcement is very unpopular. and we have to be cognizant of, you don't wanna upset everybody trying to do enforcement too. But it's like the school zones and everything, when the police went there, they caught 44 people that were speeding through the school zone. Now, everybody started slowing down, but if there's that presence there, they're gonna start speeding back up.
Should we have a conversation around motor radar? Because I know a lot of other cities are adapting it, some not so well as others.
I'd like to put that on, at least on the, to consider.
So for some background, Chief Stevens has come to council at least, so council asked Chief Stevens to go do some research and come back and report to him and find out when those meetings were on it. So I think their concerns are be perceived as like kind of predatory, especially if they're put up in like just low income areas. And so I think they're concerned that they want a strong connection with the community. And so it's in a way where it's not, it's viewed by the community as productive. It's just like a cash grab.
Yeah. Well, I see things like, what is the city of Kersey put one up, and it's like, well, you just admitted that this is a badly designed road. Like the camera has nothing to do with enforcement or fixing this.
I did see that. I think I remember one of those conversations, and I think I remember the police officer saying that Bowles might be a good candidate for it because there's nowhere to pull people over.
They can't enforce on.
They can't actually do anything there because there's no space, and so there could be some strategic spots. But there's also the issue with Flock is one of the big companies doing this. And they really love ICE and have been, collaborating with ICE, for these things. So there's a lot of concerns about privacy and things like that.
Sounds like it's definitely worth a discussion then.
Yeah.
Kind of, Jane?
Yes.
What would you all want us to accomplish next year?
Great question.
That might be helpful or would connect in with your own goals. You can pick.
She has the Joker smile.
That's
out of your pocket.
I appreciate your question.
They need a raise.
I don't think they're gonna cover that in the team.
We have these meetings during working hours.
I think, sorry.
Would help me out too.
I have thoughts, but you go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we had a discussion yesterday about kind of one of our big things are. And I think we all have good big things. I think public engagement is gonna be a huge one. So making sure that you guys keep us honest on the public engagement efforts. And I think sometimes we can get kind of not see the forest for the trees because we're in it and we're like, oh yeah, this is how you do it. But giving us feedback on how the engagement efforts are working, because it will happen throughout. And so if you guys are hearing from your neighbors or, the people your kids go to school with, things like that, they're like, oh, I didn't hear about this, or this isn't actually doing what they think it's doing, making sure that, that feedback gets to us, I think will be good. Because we want a public engagement strategy that is nimble, that can adjust to those things, so.
Yeah, two things. Building on what Shane said, I think, we've kind of talked about this idea of safety ambassadors or just, transportation type ambassadors, which I think you all are kind of like the original ambassadors for that. And so what role can you all play with helping to disseminate more information across the city and connect with those that maybe we're not connecting with? Sometimes I think there are barriers with staff. Whereas you are residents, you live in the community, you also have a stake in this thing. So trying to figure out what that looks like. And I think all of you are very eager, but also like you don't have I cannot talk. Your commitment to this group is for these meetings, right? And so, are you willing to spend time outside of it? And this year you all have shown that you are, but I don't think that's an expectation, right? If you want to continue to do that work through the TMP process. So that's one thing. But I guess I would kind of challenge you all to think about how you would want to be involved with this TMP process from the stakeholder engagement side, public engagement side. I think one of the big things that I do think you all can help us out with is that funding side. So it's not something new that we haven't talked about yet, but as we've all talked about, in these meetings and then, all the work that we do we have at least $150 million of unfunded transportation projects or public works projects. And that is not including our lack of sidewalks, our lack of comfortable bike lanes and bike facilities, right? Kyle did an estimate for a Lottie when we started that project, and just to install ADA compliant sidewalks on 2.5 miles would be 7.5 million. That we don't have budgeted. And that's one corridor.
It feels like that's what that meeting is going to be when they come and talk to us about the finances. As far as money, we have no money.
Right.
To quote Kurt.
So,
How come we do this without-
you know, and we've been operating from a place where we've gotten a lot of grants, and we've been really successful, and that's awesome, but that's also not sustainable long-term, right? We've had grant fatigue. We're kind of in a place where we're not going after a ton of grants right now because we're just trying to fulfill the grant agreements we already have, right? And so really, if we are serious as a city to do a lot of these big improvements, how are we going to accomplish that? And to me, that's really the funding question of like, how are we going to afford this? What does that look like? So I think the conversation next month we'll talk about some of the debt that the city is starting to take on through certificates of participation. But what other funding mechanisms are there? You know, is it a sidewalk fee? Is it bonding? Is it some other method that I don't know about?
Sales tax bump or something.
Right, you know, what methods are there? What would really fit for the city to accomplish our goals? To me, that is something I think you all help us out with.
Well, and I don't wanna, let the rabbit out of the hat for next month, but it's like, seems like there are some things that are just like maybe language changes in our charter that could lead, to more funding opportunities, so. Yeah,
Good. I'd like to, I'm gonna take that as a spot for us to shut this conversation down for now. So we have a list of some ideas. Everybody, showering or biking or doing something, you have another great idea. Send an email to Dan and Kenna and maybe CC Derek and I as well. Add that to the list. There is a spot on our agenda for next month. Spend time taking this list and turning our 2 to 4, whatever we think we can accomplish. So think about these. Prepared for next month. We're gonna put it down.
There any on this list on the right side that I can't talk and type at the same time?
Well, you didn't include kind of what you and Kenna had referenced. So if you wanted to put on something around the elevation of public engagement, that kind of stuff. And money.
Yeah, you want that as a.
That's not an education, that's a do in my perspective, but that's right. I have a list too, so I'll share it with you at the next meeting. Okay. Something else we're supposed to talk about?
Already gonna reapply. That's the.
So that was actually what I was gonna, thank you very much for bringing that up. So we have three of us our terms are expiring here. So
That's 3, I think.
Figure this guy out. So if you want to reapply, you're gonna need to make sure you do it by the end of January. When do you know when they open it? I think it's January 1st is when they open it up.
So, yeah.
There are no term limits.
There are term limits. I actually have that. I have that information. Because I had to ask.
You're on this would be your 3rd term, right?
You know what was funny is I got put up for another term without ever actually reapplying. Like I was originally an alternate, that we had alternates on this board when I first.
Yeah.
And then at some point, like I can't remember what year it was. I've lost track of what year it was, but like I had to reapply in 2022. And I went to go reapply and the city clerk was like, your term isn't up for like 2 more years. I'm like, what do you mean it's not up for 2 more years? Let's do it now. Maybe it was 21, I forget what it was. And they're like, oh yeah, no, they just they put you up for a new term last year. Nobody ever told me. Anyways, I do have that information if anyone is interested. I just don't write it there. So term limits, I don't know how many terms it is, but I can tell you that, no, this is not correct. Never mind, I take it back. Yours is not right, because it says 2023 is when you're through, and I don't think that's correct. So you must be 2032, I think it's, because David's through 2032. No, not your term. You may apply, reapply if you get reappointed, you can do so through 2032. After, you may not serve after 2032. I assume you're the same, because you came at the same time as David.
I signed up for the 3-year term. I don't know what you.
I'm turning.
Hey, let me try this again. Current terms. Matt comes up this year. David is up in 27. Michael's up this year. Josh is up in 28. Kelly is up in 27. Derek is up in 27. I'm up in this next year in 26. As far as the total time you can do this, like you can never ever go past this date. You are 2032, 2032, 2032.
10 years.
2034. Kelly is 2028. Derek is 2033, and I'm 2028. And what I got from from Colleen is that if you get reappointed and that term goes through that final date, you get to serve your last full term.
Oh, interesting.
That makes sense.
I don't think I'll be doing it that long, so I don't think that'll.
Well, it looks like it's, it
Basically, this would be your last term.
looks like it's 10 years.
Yes, yeah, it must be, because we were 22 and
Yeah, that's when we started. Yeah, it was 22.
10 years, wow.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Means that my 1 year when I filled in for Dan doesn't count.
There you go. Dan Flynn?
Dan would do it.
Which got it, yes.
I took over because he moved to another one.
So I have a story. I was in Europe last week. So I have I'm gonna go down the Matt path of the European traffic experiences. So unlike Copenhagen or Amsterdam, I was, in this particular case, I was in Italy and I was on the Amalfi Coast. And they do not encourage any type of walking or biking. I was on this road and there was a literally marked sidewalk this wide with a brick building right here on one side and cars, Fiats, little tiny, granted they're not as big, they're tiny, but they're going really fast right next to you. So I took a picture. I didn't bring it with, but I was thinking about you and I was like, Matt would not approve. Engineering.
1500.
Well, if we're doing these types of comparisons, I was in Guatemala a couple of weeks ago, and I similarly tried to capture video because the road, it was not a road. We were visiting a community basically off the grid, and it was absolutely insane. I mean, we were in 4-wheel drive and about to tip over at any moment. And then, of course, there's like mopeds flying by you. It's like, for anyone who wants to complain about Littleton roads, let me just have you take a look at this situation.
Very luxurious. Yeah.
Yes. Ours feel very safe relative to what I experienced. All right, any other comments, questions? Anything else the staff needs to add?
We're meeting a week early next month.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
What's the?
Yes, it is December 18th.
18th.
Literally a week before Christmas.
Yep.
Day after my anniversary.
We'll be doing Secret Santa gifts, right?
We can do that.
White elephant.
Transportation-based white elephant.
Be a bunch of round wrapped gifts.
I want an armadillo.
Would you take a zebra?
Oh, I'm gonna get one of the ballers that was hit by a truck. So it's all like jagged pieces.
Perfect for our pilot project.
All right, I think we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks for accommodating me here.
Center.
Chat about